If you're not out there making some noise and really establishing your moat, meaning the area that you can protect, that you'll continue to get buyers for as AI becomes so mainstream that we all have access to it, you're going to have a tough time existing and growing and scaling businesses. Too many small businesses fail, not because they don't have great products, it's because nobody sees it. And if they did focus on the sales and the marketing, they would do so much better, but they don't. How do we train these large language models to sound like us, to talk like us, to have access to our 20 years of knowledge if we don't have data that we can feed it? So I had to solve for that.
Hello, everybody. It's Fernando Labastida once again in another episode of the Viral Genius podcast. And we have a definite viral genius here with us, Audra Carpenter. Audra is the CEO and founder of ATech Dynamics, a content marketing agency. And she's had that since February of 2007. But before Audra was doing content marketing, she was in the real estate industry. She owned a title company for 10 years. And so that in itself is interesting, how you made that transition from real estate to content marketing. But tell us a little bit about ATech Systems, and then we'll get right into the kind of like the crux of the matter here, which is your agent automation workflow. So tell me a little bit about ATech and what you do there.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and really get into what's happening in the marketing AI business space. I think it's such an important conversation to continue to have right now, especially with all the unknowns of what's actually hype versus what's real. So I appreciate what you're doing, really. As far as ATech and that evolution from title to marketing, 08, 09 happened. So that
Yes.
real estate market, back then we were all printing money. It was just stupid, abundant to no end. And I could have stayed in business because I didn't actually close Title One until 2010. But I didn't like where it was going. The government was still a mess, FHA, all the banks. I mean, it was just a scary time to try to continue to work in that environment. And it, wasn't worth the risk for me. Now, knock on wood, I had a spotless record, never any issues, no lawsuits, none of that. I was very diligent about the work that I did do. But I also know that I know how to make money and I know how to build businesses. Before that, I actually had coffee shops in California. Somebody introduced me in 2009 to a Dan Kennedy event, of all things.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second. So I could still make as much money, but without the legal liability. And it's something new and it's exciting. And as long as I have internet, I can travel and not be tied to a desk. Real estate's very technical, lots of paperwork, very structured environment.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, let me dig in here and see if I could find a path. And actually started my journey with social media and started, we just really had Twitter back then, and trying to sell social media packages to people back then was a little challenging. Because nobody had actually bought in that it was a legitimate business opportunity. So it took a couple minutes, but got some traction there and started getting some results. And then that, kind of evolved into websites and SEO. And I mean, you name it. 17 years at this, I've done it all. It really isn't anything I haven't seen between my client work, all the volunteering I've done with SCORE over the years. And, it's been an amazing ride. The invention of AI, it was almost like, I consider myself a generalist. Many of us that started back then, we had to learn it all, right?
Yes.
You didn't have.
You and me both.
Yeah, there were no niche agencies back then. So we had a little different upbringing than some of we only do Facebook ads, or we only do, that kind of thing. But I think it actually serves us better at this time in the big timeline of AI, because we know how to fill in the gaps, which agencies that are really more specific like I said, in one lane of just funnels or just websites or whatever, they're going to have a tough time competing outside of that because they don't know how those systems work. So, it really is a golden ticket for people like us right now.
Yeah.
For me and the evolution of AI, it was almost like I could finally put together everything that I needed because I wasn't limited on staff
Right.
or the client stopping their work to build these systems because, that's super challenging. They're like, yeah, Audra, that's a nice to have, but I got to keep the business running. So we're just going to keep it fragmented and helter skelter and whatever while we try to figure it out. And so this alignment has been pretty amazing. At least for me, it has.
Yeah, I mean, I totally concur with you there. I mean, this AI has enabled those of us who, grew up having to build all our own automations and websites with WordPress, et cetera, has been kind of like a playground. Like, we're like kids in a toy shop, going in and exploring AI and figuring out how to apply it to that. And before I get into, what you're doing with
Sure.
building AI agents, I think it's really important. You kind of glossed over this bit, but I think it's really important. And in that you talked about going to this Dan Kennedy event,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that having sort of like this fundamental or this foundational uh background in copywriting, in marketing, in which you identify clients' problems and then you speak to those problems, levels of awareness, et cetera, that only people who have been trained by top copywriters can then take to AI. Like, tell me a little bit about how that sort of colored your approach to what you're doing right now.
I have to say, I don't know that that did. So, to give you a little bit more background on me, I have a couple degrees. One's in psychology and one's in behavioral science. And then I've
Okay.
also a master practitioner in NLP.
Mm-hmm.
So psychology and human nature, and that's always been, I think when I was a sophomore in high school, I wanted to become a psychologist. And then I did a bunch of research on Sigmund Freud, and it kind of scared me away from exploring that path. But human psychology has always been a huge interest for me. I think just aligning it with marketing or with strategy became very natural for me because it's somebody who I am kind of at the core. So there wasn't a big learning curve there. I don't do a lot of copywriting, believe it or not. I'm more of do you know what a team marketer is?
Yeah, those sort of a marketer who knows how to do a little bit of everything, but then maybe
Mhm.
has some deep expertise in one of those areas.
Right. So for me, strategy is huge. Consulting, finding opportunities. I spent quite a few years where I would go into a company and I would take their P&L and I would find money, find opportunities, analyze what's working, looking at, is it an email campaign? Is it a new product? Is it they're spending resources and times on things that aren't actually getting them any results and moving the needle? Being able to look at businesses because one, I've had my own business, so I know how to read P&Ls, I know how to set up systems, but then finding opportunities because I'm far enough away from it that I can see glaring things. And typically people within the business kind of miss it. So being able to come from both sides of that is really a huge strength for me. I've built easily over 500 WordPress websites. I don't code. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm good at editing, so I have copywriters. Like I said, after being in the industry this many years, you really build a network of folks that can help you based
Hmm.
on their expertise, right? I don't need
Yeah.
to be a designer. There's plenty of people that are super great at it. It's not something I love. I'm not going to take the time to learn it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I love the fact that you actually use your interest in psychology from your college years to apply that to marketing.
Mhm.
So let's get into the Content Hub OS. So we had a call last
We
week,
did.
you and I, and you kind of showed me, the under the hood look at this whole system that you vibe coded essentially, which
Mhm.
is, explain it to me. So the way I see it is you have put together some some automation workflows. You've built some AI agents and automations using make.com and other things that creates dashboard that allows you to automatically create content for LinkedIn, for blogs, for newsletters, for all these different types of social networks in order to cut an enormous amount of time out of somebody's day.
Content creation. Yeah.
Yeah. So explain, in a nutshell what it is you're doing, and then we'll kind of get into the weeds about what it is.
Okay. First, I wouldn't say they're agents because it's not autonomous, right?
Okay.
I don't think that we're there yet based on all the time that I'm spending there. There's no workflows that I can just say, hey, go do it and not double check it. So I would say it's advanced workflows is probably a better way to kind of position it. If I go back to looking at my whole career from being an entrepreneur, being a marketer, being a business builder, everything, what is one of the biggest challenges I see is content.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not just content, it's building a system where you're not fragmented with 50 different tools and 50 different workflows. And if you think about marketing in businesses, typically we hire based on somebody else's expertise. So Fernando comes in, he brings his experience, his knowledge. You got to figure out how to fit it into the bigger system. Fernando leaves and they start all over again. Right. And so content becomes very inconsistent. Everybody's process is a little bit different. The SEO guy's doing it the way they do it. The social media person's doing it the way they do it. And it's never really a sustainable system for the actual business owner themselves. So typically what I'll try to do is, or I'll look at is, let's build a system. Go back to the E-Myth days, the Michael Gerber things. Let's build a system that the business can actually sustain regardless who's sitting in the chair.
Right.
Because it really should be based on the results that the business is trying to achieve, not what that individual can bring in. Now, we do bring in top talent because we know they're going to be able to produce, but what happens when they leave? And so I see these cycles that businesses go through, this up and down, and of course, very dependent on the staff. I believe we can solve past that. I mean, I've done it repeatedly in businesses. The business should have a system. The players that come in are the support, period.
Right.
So that's a long way to get to is the content hub. So why did I build it? Because businesses can't sustain because they don't know how to build the system. They don't understand the moving parts that goes into it. Inconsistencies kill brands. As AI and content becomes super easy, if you're not out there making some noise and really establishing your moat, meaning the area that you can protect, that you'll continue to get buyers for as AI becomes so mainstream that we all have access to it, you're going to have a tough time existing and growing and scaling businesses.
Right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No. So, I mean, I really want to double click onto some of the things you're talking about, but I feel like as though you have more to say about the content.
That's unfortunate, but I've always had more to say. Well, what I think is, so the system is my contribution of all of these years and experience and inside perspective that I've been able to get from business owners of where they fail, where the opportunity is, where they're struggling. There's finally tools available that we could actually pull this off. And so that was kind of the foundation of where I started. Now, I did start it last year, but the AI wasn't there. I mean, I could get the automations to work. I could get it to produce content, but it wasn't very good. And I was like, this is no different than what somebody can do just going to ChatGPT. I'm not going to put it out there yet because it needs to be good enough where somebody can say, this is an important part of an infrastructure that I can put in and know that it's going to produce content at the level of expertise that I expect it to.
Okay, that's a really great primer on what the Content Hub is. But before we get into some of the weeds on this, you talked about creating a moat that companies can defend. I was wondering if you can kind of get into a little bit about that philosophy, because I think it's important that people have that distinction in mind, because I think what people do is you have everybody now creating content with ChatGPT, and it just sounds generic, and you can just tell that they're using ChatGPT in an undifferentiated way. So tell me a little bit about how people build these moats around their content.
Sure. Well, so if it really is simpler than what people think it is. So if you've been in business, and let me differentiate. If you're a service-based business, it's going to be a little bit different than if you are a public figure or an influencer. If you're an influencer, you're already out there producing content, you've already kind of established a moat for yourself. But what I'm finding is a lot of service-based businesses haven't. The CEO is not out there talking. They're the accountants, the people that are actually agencies like me. We're not out there talking. I mean, I've been around 20 years and there's very little brand that I've built for myself because my work happens behind the scenes, right? I'm the
Gotcha.
one standing behind the CEO. The CEO is the one out there taking credit for the work I did, which is what they pay me for. But what happens is when knowledge is available to everybody at the same level, meaning Audra with 20 years, Fernando with 20 years, kid, 13 years old. Oh, did I lose internet there for a second?
Yeah, I think for a sec, because for like about 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, it was
Okay.
just cutting in and out.
Okay. Let me see here. Says I have 5 bars, but I'll just pick up where I was there.
Yeah, if you could, that would be great.
Okay. So if we think about service-based businesses, it's a different situation because we haven't been publicly out there selling our wares day in and day out on the internet. Much of that happens behind the scenes, like my business, like a lot of us that have never really had to develop a brand online. But as knowledge becomes available to everybody and we've all got access to the same tools and the same resources, what's going to make you different if nobody knows who you are? And establishing this moat is going to be the only thing that why choose Fernando over choosing Audra? Why choose Bill over Bob if I don't know you, if you don't exist online? Because now the knowledge is available to everybody. So it's
Yes.
going to be very important to spend some time, love it or hate it, of getting your brand out there. So as people come to look you up, they find what they need and know that you can solve their problems or their questions for them.
Okay. Well, that's perfect. And it aligns very well with sort of my
Hmm.
philosophy about content, especially like you said, service businesses, even software companies where there is a
Yeah.
product involved, but there is a level of service as well. The CEOs need to get out there and kind of differentiate themselves, the founders, CEOs, whoever, the executives, etc. So getting into the Content Hub OS, you built this not being a coder, right? Being a content marketer. You built this, and when you showed this to me the other day, I mean, it looks like an application that could have been built by a team of developers along the lines of somebody like HubSpot or Salesforce.com or something,
Thanks.
right? So
Thanks.
no, it was beautiful. So, as you log in and you see your dashboard,
Hmm.
and then kind of describe what people can see and then what are the things people can do as they're inside the Content Hub OS.
Sure. So my plan with it was actually solving a couple different things. One, getting content out that was good and on brand. Two, the inconsistent issue. Three, the lack of organization with resources. I can't tell you how many clients I've gone on who has access to the drive, where's the Slack stuff, what's our offer this week. I mean, it's just, and these are
Yeah.
successful companies. These are
It's insane.
multi-million dollar companies struggling with these kind of things.
It's insane. I've
And I'm
had the same
like,
experience. I've had the
crazy.
Yeah.
So solving for those kind of things. And then the other thing is repurposing. So companies typically will push their marketing team to consistently produce new content day in and day out. Now, Most of them are pretty good at looking at the initial data that comes from it. What was our open rate? What was our click-through rate? How many sales did we generate from that campaign or that offer? They'll get through that first part. They'll look at, okay, how's the bank account looking? And what's the next campaign, right? They spend way too much time hunting and not enough time gathering. So the other kind of the final component on that is I wanted to build a system that went from ideation, just coming up with the idea, to actually repurposing what worked again and again and building this massive content library so we could just go back and reuse things that worked. I mean, much of the content that businesses create is evergreen, which means it's still valid 6 months later after you've already published it, but people don't take the time to repurpose content. I'll give you a quick example. I've got a buddy that has a podcast. He's got 42 episodes. I'm like, where are they?
Yeah.
Well, they're on they published, they're out there on iTunes. And I said, so how much of that content is still legit? Why are you not resharing that content? You have a new audience, new times, new people. I mean, our attention span online is nothing.
It's
3
nothing.
months from now, they're not going to remember that you published that if they
Yeah.
saw it to begin with.
Right.
So we don't need to keep creating fresh new stuff every single day. We need to really lean into what is the kind of ethos of our brand? What do we talk about? What are we experts in? What are we selling? And say it 1,000 different ways, just like Russell Brunson. How is he still selling ClickFunnels? How many times has he talked about it? How many different ways can you talk about a funnel?
I mean,
He
I've been
has
following
found a
him for
way.
10 years. I've been following him for 10 years, and
100%.
he's saying the same stuff.
But it doesn't stop people from listening, does it? No. So why are we doing that, right?
Yeah.
Why are we not leaning into that? That's marketing. That's sales. That's building an audience, building a tribe, building a community.
Yeah.
So that was the plan with the hub. So it's kind of like, okay, as I got into it though, here's the crazy thing. Sorry, let me
Yeah.
take a drink.
Yeah.
As I got into building it, it was much harder than I thought it was going to be. Here's
Uh-huh.
why. Even with AI and having lots of conversations, I have written or I have supervised or I have signed off or I have edited, goodness, at this point, thousands of blog posts. So I know what the process is, right? You have your idea, you do your keyword research, you get all your links. I mean, there's 100 steps, maybe less than that, say 50 steps to create a blog post. Go to ChatGPT and say, map out the steps. It's only going to come up with probably 30 of those. So it's not going to get granular enough to give you the exact step by step, which forced me, I would take the initial, run it, and I'm like, it's still not good. What am I missing? What am I missing? Because we take for granted, because we do all these steps just from unconsciously from memory, that you
Right.
don't think about mapping out those little tiny steps.
The
That's
step
why people aren't getting good outputs.
the steps that are unconscious for us almost, right?
Correct.
But they have to be explicitly identified and spelled out if you want to automate this, right?
Because AI will not fill in the gaps. So I may have given it 2, 4, 6, and 9. It's not filling in 1, 3, 5, 7, and 8. It's just, it doesn't do that. And so I would, do these automations. The automation part is actually the easy part. It's giving the prompts and the AI enough information to be able to put out content that is current or that is appropriate for whatever brand you're trying to test on. So as I started unraveling that, it got deeper and deeper and deeper. And I was like, it's writing great content. It's on brand. It sounds like me, but none of these are my stories.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm not going to do that either. I'm not going to. So I would get this really great blog post, but then I would have to spend 2 hours going in and changing the examples it provided. Because I'm not going to say, I got 82% return on this and this if it's not true. I'm
Right.
just not.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't write like that. So then I was like, okay, so this isn't worth my time. If
Mm-hmm.
I have to edit this much, I might as well pay a ghostwriter to do it and I don't have to worry about it. So another roadblock I had to figure out how to get around. So then I started kind of reverse engineering it. And this is what a lot of founders are going to run into. Because we haven't been public, we haven't produced a bunch of content.
Right.
So how do we train these large language models to sound like us, to talk like us, to have access to our 20 years of knowledge
Right.
if we don't have data that we can feed it?
Right. Right.
So I had to solve for that.
And so how did you do that? I mean, and please, if there's anything that you can't reveal because it's
Yeah, no,
a
it's
spoiler.
it's yeah. So the way that I solve for that is when I write blog content, we start with an outline. And I'm just talking blog specifically. The Content Hub addresses podcasts, YouTube, newsletters, blog posts, and then some general content for kind of a catch all for the things that aren't one of those four main assets. But how I solved for that was I start with an outline. Once I sign off on the outline, then I have it interview me and ask me 3 to 5 questions about my own experience.
Right.
I answer, so I pop open my phone, I record some responses in a memo, I
Right.
copy that transcript into the system. So now
Mm-hmm.
it has my legit stories.
Right.
Then it writes the article. So I got a 22-word blog post.
Mm-hmm.
I'd changed 2 words in it. It was that accurate.
Wow.
I was
Wait
like,
a minute. What,
"That's the answer."
a 2,200 word blog post?
Mhm,
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's fantastic. And so you use just like the memo part of your iPhone, and does it
Mhm.
create a transcript automatically or?
Yeah, for voice memos, when you go into it after you save the recording, you can just hit a little button, say copy transcript, and I use Mac products, so all my stuff is synced. So I
Yeah.
just copy, airdrop it into, or you could type it. I mean, I give you both options. Here's the
Yeah.
other thing. Once I kind of figured out how to train it on me, then as it writes more content, it builds a little kind of an internal RAG system, which if you don't
Mhm.
know what that is, it's a memory
Right.
essentially
Right.
of what your content looks like. So as you create more content inside the content hub, it
Right.
starts learning how Audra writes on LinkedIn or her newsletters or her blog posts or whatever it is, Facebook. And then
Mhm.
when I go to request that kind of content, I've already trained it as to how to respond. I mean,
Okay.
we
So
talk differently. Yes.
right. So this RAG system, I mean, I think about, a custom GPT or a Claude
Yeah.
project as kind of
Yeah.
like, what is that? What is the RAG hub for Content OS? Is it on OpenAI or
No, it's
Anthropic
within
or
my system.
within your system? Okay. So how is that
Yeah,
stored?
I don't use GPTs in my data in the database. Yeah, so
Okay.
each client has their own little
Mhm.
workspace with their own data stored there. Nobody else has access to it other than them. And you set it up as you go through the onboarding as to what kind of content you're going to be creating.
Right. And are
Yeah.
you using Airtable as the database or
I
what's
got
the
a couple different things in the back, yeah.
Mhm, mhm, okay. That's cool. So I can imagine maybe using, like, some Notion tables or,
No, no
Airtable.
notion. I've got it down to, I'm not going to give it away here, but I've got it down to one database, only Make. I'm only using Make for the automations and the major LLMs, and that's it.
And that's
I'm
it.
Here's the point. AI will change the skins we put on it, the what we can do with it. That's not the important thing. The important thing is a system, period.
Right. Right.
Right. So people are not producing content at scale because they can't get a repeatable process behind them that will
Mhm.
do the heavy lifting when they're having days that they can't do it. This
Right.
system allows them to have content. So everything's not fragmented. I'm about results. I'm about scaling. I don't want to put the effort in if it's not going to get me the results. I don't want to waste time. 99% of business owners, which you know this, don't want to do marketing. They just don't.
Mhm. They don't.
But if you can make it easy enough that the majority of the heavy lifting is done by a system instead of their staff, you're not so dependent on, are we going to get some consistent results? Can we scale? Just to kind of wrap up so the way the hub works is you give it an idea, or you give it a topic for a blog or a transcript from a podcast or YouTube, and then it writes content for you. So for a podcast, it's pulling out your timestamps and your titles and descriptions and your guest quotes, and writes the social media for you, writes the emails for you, and even will design images. I have 3 different image models in there. You pick which one you want to use. You can upload and your brand stuff and train it on it. And you get to approve things as you go along.
Right.
The goal of that, again, is the consistency of getting content out. Then you schedule it, and then it gets published. Now, I'm still working on building in the analytics side of it. So again, to close the loop of this open loop that we started, we need to look at the data. And then there's a repurpose center. So you'll be able to know how well that social post did. Do I need to reshare it? Maybe it got no attention. Do we want to reuse it? Do we want to modify it? And then you can track how many times you have repurposed that content.
This is absolutely amazing, Audra. And you know, I've got to think that maybe you could even probably raise some VC funds for this, and you know, scale this out to tens of hundreds of thousands of people. Is that on your timeline at all? Have you thought about that?
I don't know yet. I think for me, it's kind of like, if I sold boats for a living, people wouldn't care so much what my website looks like. But because I'm an agency for this many years, the product just has to be, at top quality, right? If I'm going to sell that. So I want to work through that first. I want different industries to come in and try it and work with me and let me help them get better and better results, to the point where it's on autopilot, where the content output is, regardless if you're a plumber or an agency or a, influencer, it's nailed who you are and what you sound like. And it gives you content that you would actually use.
That's fantastic. Now, how have you been able to build this if you're full-time running your own agency? Like, when have you found the time to do this?
I don't have much of a social life. It's a curse or a strength. I don't know. I work. And when I'm not working, I'm learning. And when I'm running, I'm listening to podcasts. And when I'm wired that way. So it's very natural for me to work 12, 14, 18 hours a day. And I don't look at it like work. It's not, I'm working so hard, I'm burning out, I'm stressed out. This is great stress. I'm excited about what I'm doing and producing. And I'm not only serving my clients, I have people. So I'll do a lot of the heavy lifting, and many of them do the rest of the work to get it across the finish line.
Yeah, that's great. So let me ask you this: as a person who's a marketer like me, you didn't study engineering, you're not a software developer. How were you able to handle the technical parts? Tell me a little bit about your process there.
Well, I would say, even though I'm not a developer, going back to us being generalists, I had to learn how to build an email campaign, set up a shopping cart, build websites. I'm kind of a geek like that. Yeah. So even though I would never call myself a developer per se by trade, I can get in and compete with the best of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can there's not anything I haven't done. I can set up your Google ads. I can set up your Facebook ads. I can set up your funnels on Go High Level. I mean, I know how to get in the weeds. I'm not just, a lot of strategists and consultants are just that, right? They've never actually gotten the weeds and done the work. But back then we had to, because there was nobody we could delegate it to. Exactly. It was all too new.
You and I started in this world. I started building WordPress websites in 2007, right? Wow. And I started blogging, and
there were no templates or themes or everything
No.
was, yeah.
Well, I remember there was a theme that I discovered back in 2009 called Thesis. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
Thesis at all.
Yeah. Those guys are still around, I think.
I think so. Well, then I
Yeah.
started following Brian Clark, and they came up with a thing.
Mhm.
He partnered with a WordPress developer, and they had a premium template store. They kind
Mhm.
of invented the whole premium template
Yep.
thing,
Yeah.
and then I had to go in and figure out how to do email automations. And, now I can
Mhm.
build, crazy automations in Kit, previously
Mhm.
ConvertKit,
Yep.
and Zapier. And, I was doing webinar funnels where I had to connect Zoom webinar to, ConvertKit and, using Zapier. And then if somebody reached a certain level or, clicked on something, then they'd get something, so kind of the stuff, but I think that you're a little bit ahead of me. I think, well, kind of a lot ahead of me. Like, I don't know how to go high level or set
You're
up
good.
Google ads or anything like that, but I could probably figure it out if I, sat down, watched some
Of course.
YouTube videos, bought some courses or whatever and done that. But I think that that's really fantastic. And I kind of see you as the kind of the prototype of the marketer of the future, you know,
Thanks.
which is, like the marketer who goes in there and basically vibe codes, and I don't like that word that much, but that's kind of like
Mm.
the only thing that comes into mind. But vibe codes applications that do things and codifies the processes that you talked about, right? Which is, how are you going to get content that talks from your experience, right? That
Mhm.
tells your stories. How are you going to repurpose content so that you don't have to be creating stuff from scratch every time? I mean, that's and no developer is going to know how to do that, right? There's something that
No,
I
because
think
they
that
don't have that experience,
they
right?
don't have that
It's
experience.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
having both of those, I think that and 2, I've had to trial and error it, right?
Hmm.
Like I mentioned, I started this last year and the AI wasn't there, but I also didn't know where the pitfalls were, right? So I had to wait for AI to catch up. And then I was like, okay, well, let me solve this for me. And then I could figure out how to solve it for everybody else. And then you build it into an automation. And a lot of people they don't have the patience, they don't have the desire to learn it. Something about me is I'm pretty good at digging in and solving things. Maybe I should have been like what do they call profiler at some point. But once I can kind of work through that process and I get it going like it's supposed to, I do want to delegate it. I don't
Yeah.
need to, the
Yeah.
repetitive stuff it just isn't for me, but I'll get it to a place where whoever can take over and run with it. And then as edits are needed, we update it and move on. Now, the reason I started with content is one, because of AI online and where we're going as a society. Too many small businesses fail, not because they don't have great products, it's because nobody sees it. And they're so in the weeds of trying to figure out silly things that just don't matter, like, well, let me create another version of my product, or they're focused on the wrong things. And if they did focus on the sales and the marketing, they would do so much better, but they don't. So I mentioned earlier that I did volunteering with SCORE. And I
Yes.
could literally walk in and have a 10-minute conversation with somebody and tell you if they were going to make it or not by
Okay.
the
So what were the
language they're using.
yeah, so tell me about that. How would you be able to tell if they were not going to make it, and what was the telltale sign that they were going to make it?
The way they presented their product to me. Here's my problem, Audra. And I do my homework. So I would go and look at how they're showing up online. Are they posting where their product is, what their kind of offering looks like?
Hmm.
Even knowing nothing about them or their product, I could tell very quickly where the holes were. Again, I've done this for multi-million dollar companies. It's very easy to see in a startup, but then having the conversation with them, what's important to them, where they're focused, where are they willing to dig in and do the work? And the majority of them thought they could work their way around it, and you can't. The only way through it is through it. And if they're not willing to do the work, they won't make it. They
Yeah.
just won't,
Yeah. So
unfortunately.
it's interesting that you mentioned people continuing to tweak and do different versions of their products, which is like kind of, it's like working on the wrong thing, but thinking that because you're working, you're making progress.
You're busy. Yeah.
Yeah, you're busy. And to me, and tell me if this resonates with you at all, but I think that the main thing that companies miss is that they're not focused in enough on an initial niche market, right? And their pain, right?
I don't know. I kind of I'd go the other way, even though it's kind of against what we've been taught. I say
Yeah,
go wide. So I'm going out to go fishing. I'm just going to try to catch everything. Then when I catch everything, I'm going to find out what I have the most of.
right.
And then that's the market I'm going to hit. Here's the
Okay.
reason, because a lot of business owners think I'm selling to people who want this coffee mug,
Mhm.
but they really weren't right. If they would have gone a little bit broader, they would have found they wanted this in yellow, but they didn't because they swore that everybody just wanted this one. So
Mhm.
I kind of do it a little bit the other way, but it's not even just startups. So say a business has got a little bit of momentum, they found an audience that's buying their product, they still think it's about the product, and it's not. It's about the audience and serving that the right message with the right audience. That's got to be the focus. And regardless if we have AI or not, marketing today is still marketing. We
Right.
still have to do the work. The
Right.
tools are changing and we're
Right.
getting some different teammates to help us, but
Yes.
marketing's still marketing. In
Right.
2025, it's still marketing and we still got to do the work.
It's still finding the right audience and the right message, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's so fundamental. And I think people miss that with kind of like getting the amazed by the new technology, and
Yeah. Stop.
get they get bright-eyed and
Just
bushy-tailed
stop.
about all the new developments out there. And now that OpenAI, ChatGPT has come out with ChatGPT agents, people are going to go crazy on that, et cetera. But it is about the message and the audience. So
Yeah.
in the future, so you mentioned one thing, and then this is like the last question, and I know that we're
But you're
coming up.
good. You're good.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the Content Hub OS is not autonomous yet, but do you have any plans for making it autonomous or adding some autonomy in there so the agents can kind of make decisions based on how you're prompting it?
I think first it'll stay a workflow. I want to
Mhm.
nail the content side of it, and then step 2 is actually doing this for the rest of your business. So, it's not so much the autonomous thing. I don't see a place where I want to go buy from a faceless agent without any human interaction. I don't see that for at least a couple years, 2, 3, 4 years. So that's longer term. That's not the market I'm trying to serve. First, let me get to a place where I can help you run your company, the whole company, with 3 roles. So for me, I'm kind of breaking down what the org chart looks like, the old school org chart where marketing teams have 5 different people. You have a copywriter, a social media person, a graphic designer, your ads person, your SEO person. I
Totally.
don't believe that we need those roles anymore
Yeah.
because a lot of it can be taken up by AI. We need what I'm calling operators.
Mhm.
So the E-Myth, I'm kind of bringing together my own version of the E-Myth for 2025. If you guys don't know the E-Myth from Michael Gerber, it came out in late 1990s or so. He talked about the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician.
Right.
I think the roles with AI are now the architect, meaning the thought leader, the founder, kind of the visionary. So you have an architect, you have an operator, which is somebody that manages the systems, and then
Mhm.
you have the automator, which is AI. And
Right.
that's it.
Right.
So I'm building to go into that model. So I'll start with content, I'll add in sales, customer service, and then the ops side. So it's a complete business within this ecosystem. It's
Mhm.
just content was the easiest, and it is a huge problem for so many. So that's why I started here.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, this is fantastic. I think that we're gonna have to have you on for another episode because there's just so much more I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, it's a lot, but at the same time, it's very organized chaos. It's very logical for me the way that I'm building these. Okay, so what's the next step? What's the next step? And if I give anybody any takeaways from this, stop going out and chasing every new tool that says they're going to get you this, they're going to make your ads do this, they're going to just go back to how am I currently selling? How am I getting customers right now? Okay. So right now I'm running ads. Right now I'm posting videos on TikTok. Whatever it is, find that little tiny spot where you're generating customers from, and then find out, okay, how does AI fit in this to either help me get it done faster, save me money, or get me better results? If it can't do one of those three, leave it alone for now and move on to something else. But, trying to do that outward bound of let me get this piece of software, it's going to solve my business woes and I'll be $1 million company. Just stop.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
save your time.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So great, Audra. This is fantastic. And, everyone in every podcast says, where can people find you? But I think I know people can find you on LinkedIn as Audra Carpenter. What are other ways that you prefer people to contact you if they want to, possibly become a client or learn more about your process?
Well, you can go to thecontenthubos.com just to check it out, right? There's content on there. I do have a beta list, so I'm getting folks ready. I'm hoping to be live in the next couple weeks, but I'm Audra Carpenter on any of the platforms. I've been around for so long that it's just, anywhere on there. So wherever you consume content, come find me.
Well, and I also wanted to say that I love interviewing you for one other important reason. I think you and I are in the same generation, Gen X,
Yeah,
probably.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm a big hero of Gen X entrepreneurs doing innovative things and getting out there. And, it's like, it's kind of like as the antidote of the Gen Z or the millennial founder, those are the ones that we lionize, et cetera. But you know what? I think we have a lot to contribute to the world.
We do. And, there's not many generations that can outwork us. So.
Amen. Exactly.
You keep focusing out there on shiny objects while the rest of us Xers are in the weeds making stuff happen.
Well, and this is the thing, Audra, you and I, our generation have been on both worlds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We discovered the internet while we were in the prime of our working lives, the mid to late 90s. I first started using the internet in 1996. But before that, we had a vast experience in business. I mean, I was doing things like, I was doing cold calling. I was attending events. I was out visiting clients in my car.
Weird, right?
I know. So we have all this experience from both worlds, right? And I think that's kind of a superpower that we have.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much, Audra.
It's definitely served me well.
Yeah, this has been a great interview. I love geeking out on all this kind of stuff. And, would love to have you back again next time. And we will see everybody on the next episode of the Viral Genius podcast. Thanks for joining me. All right. If you want to get more of the Viral Genius podcast in your inbox, just go to startupstrikes.substack.com and subscribe.